on the 13th day of February 2024. I just want to remind everyone before I call the meeting to order that this evening's meeting will be live streamed and will be put on our Town of Napanee YouTube channel for the folks that can't get here tonight or won't be able to watch this evening meeting as it's live. So having said that, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with our closed session meeting that we had earlier this evening. I'll look for a motion to rise and report from closed session with respect to this evening's meeting, moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. I'd like to report that in closed session tonight, Council approved the closed session minutes from January 30th, 2024, received a report regarding negotiations to be carried on by the municipality and gave direction to staff, and received advice from legal counsel regarding a human resources matter and gave direction. Having said that, we'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Presentations. We do have a presentation this evening from the Community Foundation for Lennox and Addington. We have Mr. Bob Baker. Come on forward, sir, and welcome. And I'll just give you the rules of engagement here. We've got a microphone there. You do have to push the button that's on the right-hand side. I think it might say where it says talk. Yeah, you have to push it and you have to hold it. So we can hear you very well.
So I hold it and that's good?
Yeah, if you hold it and talk, and then when you stop talking, just release the button. We can hear you, just the folks at home that have difficult hearing you if you don't push the button. So welcome, and the floor is yours.
Mayor Richardson, members of council, thank you for having us here this evening. I'm joined by board member Glenn McFadden, and I have a feeling that some of our directors are also watching on the live stream. I sent them the link, so we're really wonderfully happy to be here. I'm the new executive director for the Community Foundation for Lennox and Addington. I joined the organization in September, and doing my best to get out into the community. And this is I met with Lennox County Council last year, and I know we had a couple of disruptions in getting here because of snowstorms and other business, but really thrilled to be here in February to talk to you and bring you up to date on some of the activities that are going on with the Community Foundation. Now, well, there we go. So I know many of you are probably quite familiar with us. And some of you may not be, but it's probably a good opportunity to give you a refresher. We began as the Napanee Community Foundation in 1987 with a generous donation by the Hogarth family. And in that time, from that $100,000 donation, we've grown into a real concern. We have invested in excess of $3.7 million in our endowment, which provides a significant number of grants to community groups in our community. But now we're for all of LNA. We became the Lennox and Addington Community Foundation about 5 or 6 years ago. We have 39 funds. I'm about to confirm our 40th fund. We have distributed over $1.6 million in the community since our founding. 710,000 of that for student awards and bursaries to high school students. We're volunteer driven. As I mentioned, there's a board director here with me tonight. And our directors are from all over the community and play a role in making sure that we're building this fund to have a significant impact close to home with the work that we do. We're really a partner and a resource for the community. We bring together donors, funders with causes, so that they can support the causes that are close to their heart and important to them. We manage our endowment funds. They're pooled with the Toronto Foundation so that we can get more leverage out of our funds and have greater returns. And we've been fortunate to get double-digit returns, which we can then reimburse or invest back into our community. We run a community grants program, and in fact, our volunteer grants committee will be in the coming weeks considering over 25 applications and have some tough decisions to make to distribute the funds that we have available to give away this year. And we are one of over 200 community foundations in Canada. And we're of various sizes, and it's important to note that we all do important work. We have varying levels of renown, and I'm certainly working to make sure we are better known so that we can meet and exceed our goals that we have in the community. What's really great about community foundations is we support all causes: arts, health, senior services, social services, the environment, everything. We fund absolutely everything. And so if a charity, for instance, a smaller charity has an opportunity to secure significant funds, but they don't have the resources to manage the funds, that's what we do. And we can invest their funds and work with them to make sure that they're getting the best returns and, in fact, having funds in perpetuity so that they can do their good work of delivering services that we have in the community. And I think you all know that we have a great relationship with the greater town of Napanee. You started a fund with us in 2018, which has grown to nearly $20,000, and we use the returns on those funds pooled with our other funds to there'll be actually part of the funds that are considered with these grants that are going to be distributed later this spring. And you're one of the many pooled funds, one of the many funds that's pooled with what we do. But the other great thing you do and have been doing is providing an annual granting program. And we've been granting $10,000 a year provided by the town. And our granting committee actually looks after vetting all of those applications that we do every fall. And it's a huge difference. So we're basically your partner in distributing grants. It's a unique relationship, and I know that a lot of other municipalities have an infrastructure in place where they have their own grant committee. Well, we're your grant committee, and we love doing that because we're closest to the needs and have a great understanding of what's going on in the community. And that's the other thing that makes us unique. So if you were to look at us and if someone were to ask you, so I heard the Community Foundation presented at council last night, what do they do? Well, we connect, we explore, we fund, we enrich. Those are really the four key words. And if you come away with one of them, I'll be happy. We connect donors and causes so that we can make our community better. We explore community needs, and in fact, in 2019, we did our vital signs research and consultation across the community to identify 3 specific areas that are priorities for LNA, and I'll talk about those in a second. As I mentioned, we also fund multiple causes, and our core mission is to enrich the lives of everyone who lives in Lennox and Addington by making certain we can make the investments and donate the funds from our generous donors back into the community to support a number of important causes. This is where things get interesting with our foundation is what types of funds do we have? I mean, on the surface, it's like we get money, we invest it, we take a percentage of it and distribute it. But we have actually a number of ways we distribute it. One is through our community grants that I already touched base about. We will be considering a number of applications. Our applications closed in late January. The committee will make decisions based on what we know, the case made by the charities applying to us for the importance of what they need and our knowledge of what's important in key areas of concern in the community. But donors can also come to us and set up a donor-directed fund. A donor-directed fund is where they set up a fund and the interest on that funding goes to a specific charity that they choose. Conversely, they can also do a field of interest fund or a donor designated fund where their fund is set up to support a specific area. So rather than a specific charity, they could say, well, this is my interest. It's the environment, or it's poverty, or it's health, or seniors. And we work with them each year to direct those funds to a specific charity that fits their desires and their needs, and also fulfills the needs of the charity. And then our emerging funds, which is something that's fairly new, that was launched out of our vital signs from 5 years ago. I think we had that blip with the pandemic, but 2019 doesn't seem that long ago. And we identified 3 key areas: good health and well-being, environmental action, and no poverty. And in fact, we've created 3 funds. They're called 180 funds, and there's the health, environment, and poverty, where people in the community can donate funds directly to these areas, and we will then donate give those funds or grant those funds through our community granting program to those specific areas. And we will be looking in the coming years at what are the key priorities in the community, but certainly most folks that I've talked to in the last little while have said poverty, environment, and health seem to be key areas of importance to LNA, and that's something certainly we're going to keep focused on. Finally, and in summary, we're here to be a community builder. We're here to work with our municipalities, our elected officials, to be a part of the solution, to be a community builder, to make LNA a great place to live and a great place to get services that you need across the spectrum. I'm excited that we're able to provide funds to organizations that are providing backpacks and water bottles to school kids who can't afford them, to be able to help the gymnastics club get equipment that they need. So it's a real spectrum of the types of things that we're able to fund and support. We have been talking about our future, though. We distributed over 125,000 last year. We'll be distributing in the area of 160,000 this year, probably the best we've ever done through our own funds from philanthropy. But the board wants to do more, and we want to do more. We want to have a bigger impact on our community, and we're going to be working towards getting ourselves to a point where we can generate and grant $500,000 a year. Don't hold me to a timeline, but that's what we're building towards. So that could be a combination of building our fund from 3.7 to 10 million or flow through funds. Not everything that's donated to us has to be endowed. It can flow through, much like the granting that we have set up with the town. We're excited about continuing our focus on the key priorities of the community, pushing forward to help find solutions around poverty, health, and the environment, because we want to work with you and we want to work with everyone in the community and philanthropists to make a difference and continue to make a difference in the county. So I thank you for having me here. My one ask would be that talk about us. We want to meet as many people in the community as possible, and I do as well. And the brief commercial, June 19th is our golf tournament. June 19th is our golf tournament. I've got an email from a board member saying, don't forget to mention the golf tournament. But I'm happy, Mayor Richardson, to take any questions from any council members.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Bob. Just hang tight. Does anybody have any questions for Bob with respect to his presentation or the foundation itself? Go ahead, Councillor Pinnell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Bob, thank you very much for coming in and presenting to us. And I want to thank you and everybody on the board and everybody has anything to do with your foundation. My question, as I was listening to you speak, you answered a little bit of it, but this last year you paid out over 125,000, and this year you're looking at 160. What is the major reason for such an increase? I know you were talking about through flows and such like that, but could you just maybe give us a history of why, or how you were able to obtain such an increase?
Great. We had a substantial growth in our investments last year. We actually had a very good year. The Toronto Foundation manages not just our funds, but the funds of a number of other community foundations, and we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's great for us because we don't have to have to manage our investments. They do it for us. So they had a great year last year. But I'm not going to say what it was because I can't remember more than. But it was a double-digit growth. We've had decent growth the last few years, and I think it's also important to know that we average our granting over a 2-year. We look at a 2-year rolling average, and that's how we set it. And I know that after we've paid our fees, what we're providing is about 4.5 or 4.6% of our interest of what we've earned into that. We did a lower amount last year. I think it was closer to 4%. Maybe it was in the high 3s. I wasn't here then, but I don't remember the exact number. But because we had a great return, we're able to actually turn around and give more back.
That's great. I appreciate the answer. And Darlene has emailed myself, and council was there last year, and I'm hopefully that we can get a team again this year. So for your golf tournament, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for coming tonight. I was just curious, what's your criteria for deciding what funding you'll get? Because you must have an enormous, I mean, there's great need out there in the community for a lot of things. So I'm just curious about your criteria there.
The criteria is significant. I mean, we're looking at budgets. We're looking at the priorities as we've identified: the poverty, health, and environment. It's a very sophisticated spreadsheet, and it's a scoring system along a number of significant criteria. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that I know I've only sat through one of those sessions, and that was for the Greater Napanee one that we did late last year. But I know that there are some preferences that volunteers have for the types of charities they like to do. So we try to, as much as possible, make it very, very objective. So there's a series of objectives. There's rankings, and it's going to be an interesting year with 27 applications and over $500,000 in requests, and around $70,000 or $80,000 to give away. So it's going to be a doozy of a meeting in a few weeks. And I know that our committees, I want to shout out to our volunteers, the quiet volunteers of the Community Foundation. I know they're working away, putting hours in reviewing these 27 applications that we currently have. They're unsung heroes, what they're doing, and being able to get the money out to causes that are very worthy in the community. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much. Good luck with better fundraising this year, and thank you for all you do for the community.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Martin. Is there any other questions for Bob before we get him on his way this evening? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
This is because it's on YouTube. You issue tax receipts from personnel, right? Correct.
We are a charitable organization, have
Exactly.
had charitable status since 1987, and all donations receive a charitable tax receipt.
That all helps.
Great. Yep, you're absolutely right. Is there any other questions for Bob? Seeing none. Oh, yep. Go ahead, Bob.
Seeing as we're on YouTube, if anyone is inclined to give right now who's watching council, go to CanadaHelps.org and look up the Community Foundation for Lennox in Addington, and you can donate to us instantly. Thank you.
Perfect. And an extremely well-timed plug there. So congratulations. Yeah, if there's nothing else, I just want to thank you for coming. It was a good presentation. It's refreshing to hear from people that want to give money away as opposed to asking for money. So for us, especially at this time of year, it was a very refreshing presentation. And I thank you, and thank you for the work that you do within our community. So having said that, I'll look for a motion to note and receive the presentation. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, sir. And again, thank you for coming this evening. Moving on, we're on to the deputation portion of the meeting. I don't believe we have any scheduled deputations with respect to new items, Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, no, we do not. We did receive notice today with respect to the next item that regrettably our other deputation on the agenda is unable to attend the meeting this evening.
Great. So we'll be able to move through deputations with respect to items on the agenda. So we have nothing this evening. And correspondence items on the agenda, I don't believe we have anything there as well. Moving through into unfinished business, I don't believe we have any unfinished business, do we? That'll take us down to the administrative consent agenda. And we will start with the council minutes, regular session of council, January 30th, 2024, and the special session of council, February 6th, 2024. Is there anything that anybody would like to speak to with respect to those 2 minutes? Seeing none. Committee minutes, Recreation Advisory Committee and the Arts Advisory Committee. We have a couple of reports there. We'll start with the Recreation Advisory Committee. I think that's yours, Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there anything you'd like to highlight with respect to those minutes? Great, thank you. And the Arts Advisory Committee, is that Councillor Pennell? No, it'd be Councillor Norrie, and Councillor Norrie's not here tonight. So I don't think there's anything there, Madam Clerk, that we know of that needs to be highlighted. Committee reports, the Loyalist Parkway Association. Is there anything within that report that somebody would like to talk to or would like to ask any questions about? And Councillor Shank, I think that is, are you part of that or no? You're kind of, okay. But there's nothing in that report that we need to speak to or highlight?
No, I don't believe so.
Great. Correspondence for information items dated February 13th, 2024. Is there anything there that anyone would like to speak to or make mention of? Seeing none. Correspondence for action, Lennox and Addington Seniors Outreach Services Liaison Representative appointment. Is there anything there that anyone would like to make comment or speak to? Seeing none. And proclamation request, Heritage Week. Is there anything there? And I think maybe Councillor Martin would like to speak to that. So you've got the floor, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just wanted to make a few comments. As a council sitting member on the Heritage Committee, I just wanted to encourage people to explore our past and uniqueness of our area. We have many historic structures and examples of beautiful architecture here in town, and for Heritage Week, I think it'd be a good idea for everybody just to get out, have a look around. I mean, there's places, even our town hall here, where our Canada's first Prime Minister gave one of his last political speeches, Ellen McPherson House. You can visit the LNA Museum as well. They have many exhibits there. We have many examples of historical value here in Napanee, past. And I would just like to invite people to get out and look around our town, soak up the history, remember where our roots began and what made us what we are today. I'd be honored to put forth that motion that Jessica put together, proclaiming Heritage Week. And that's all my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Martin. And I think you're absolutely right. We are a community that is rich in heritage, and we should take advantage of it and exploit it and celebrate it, because we really do have something that can't be replaced and something that a lot of other municipalities would yearn to have. So thank you for bringing that up. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Councillor Martin with respect to Heritage Week? Seeing none, so we'll look for, we're going to do this all under one motion, I think, are we not, Madam Clerk? We'll look for a motion that council consent to the approval of the following routine items: council minutes, regular session of council January 30th, 2024, and special session of council February 6th, 2024, that the minutes of the regular session of council dated January 30th and the special session of council dated February 6th be adopted as presented, that the draft Recreation Advisory Committee minutes of December 14th, 2023, and the draft Arts Advisory Committee minutes of January 25th, 2024 be received for information, that council receive for information the Loyalist Parkway Association's 2023 year-end financial documents, that correspondence for information items dated February 13th, 2024 be received, that council approved the request from the Lennox and Addington Seniors Outreach Services to appoint Councillor Norrie as their liaison representative with the town of Greater Napanee, and that council proclaim February 19th to 25th, 2024 as Heritage Week in the town of Greater Napanee. And I believe Councillor Martin would like to move that motion.
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Hicks. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Moving through to items for consideration: infrastructure services, utilities, environmental services, organizational structure change. And I believe Mr. Defoe is coming up to speak to that. Welcome, Peter, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Worship. The staff report you have in front of you is fairly self-explanatory. I'll just hit a couple of the high notes in there and then be available for any questions. So one thing, this report coming in front of you this evening, it's nice to be able to bring a staff report that shows an innovative way to change and adapt to the changing needs in our workplace. And it actually saves the town money as well. So this is an easy one from a staff perspective to present to council. The table that's embedded within the report just gives you a snapshot of what we've done historically and then what we're proposing to do in the future. So you can see by the full-time equivalency on the management side that we're actually doing more duties with less staff. The staff recommendation in front of you, it will help improve service delivery and make significant enhancements in how we do compliance-related duties. As far as savings, in the financial section of the report, you'll see that there's the annual savings are listed in there anywhere between $24,000 and $32,000 annually, and available for any questions.
Great, thanks, Peter. Does anybody have any questions for Peter with respect to his presentation or the report? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell, and then we'll go to Deputy Mayor Carver.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, Peter, thanks for the report. Just wondering if the go-ahead is given tonight, when this position would be expected to be filled? And is this something that could be filled in the fiscal of 2025?
Through your worship, the intent would be to post as soon as possible and have somebody probably within a handful of months, probably 3 to 4 months would be ideal.
Is there any way that this could be put over to next year?
Through your worship, it would put staff in a pretty difficult position. We'd be juggling a lot of different duties back and forth between existing positions. It would not put us in a good position. And being in compliance related, it's not one that you want to leave vacant long.
And one last one.
Yep, go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Within the budget talks that we've had, was the labor costs already put in for this? I know that we have a deduction, but was there a placeholder put in for the person that's no longer here?
Through your worship, so the utilities budget's already approved. So I would fully expect at year end, even bringing this position on, like within say 3 months, there'd be still savings at year end.
Okay, maybe I can ask a little bit clearer. I know that the utilities budget's already been approved. Was it approved with the other full-time labor in that?
Through your worship, maybe just, so this is not an additional staff person. This is simply replacing a management position with a non-management position. Same number of bodies, just a lower salary grade. So the higher salary grade was what was budgeted for the year. So that's where you're going to see the annual savings.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to get to, but I didn't have the right words. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Deputy Mayor Carver.
So through your worship, so basically, Peter, we're going from 3 managers to 2 managers. Is that what we're doing now?
Through your worship, so correct. So there's the director, deputy director, and then be myself, where duties are split between 2 different departments. So it'd be 2.5.
Okay. And so who would this new person respond to or answer to?
Through your worship, so this position would report directly to the director, and which is ideal in a compliance role because there'd be no influence or pressures based on operational needs. It'd be like auditing yourself per se if this position reported to someone else.
Okay. So and you're as you're saying, we need this position to be filled.
Through your worship, correct. It's one of the most important positions in utilities.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Carver. Is there any other questions for Mr. Defoe before we look for motion? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation the council receive for information on the legislative services update, proposed amendments to sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That council receive for information the infrastructure services, utilities, environmental services, organizational structure change report, and further that council approve the proposed organizational change and direct staff to begin the recruitment process. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, Peter. Next up is update proposed amendments to the flag proclamation policies. And Madam Clerk, I think that's yours, right?
Through your worship, this report is in response to the feedback we received at the last council meeting. There's a couple options presented here. I realize that's not comprehensive of all the options that we could consider, so certainly open to additional feedback and possible tweaking to these documents at this meeting.
Thanks, Madam Clerk. Who wants to start? Do we have anyone that wants to start the conversation with respect to the report that's before us? And I see there is a couple of options for us, but it's not limited to that either. We can do pretty much what we want to give some advice to staff. So Councillor Shank, we'll start there first.
Yeah, I like the report what Jessica did the last time, and now there's a monetary figure on along Prince or Dundas Street what the costs are. So no one we're not picking sides. We're being fair right across the board to all organizations that do things, and it's still a very, very small fee to put up 20 banners on 26 posts is $459. I have no idea how you're doing it at that rate, but I was totally surprised by that. But you can't say one organization is getting it free and the other one is getting, you know what I mean? For that along Dundas Street, which is prime location, where you have to have, if you don't have the right, you have to have, what is it? I think it was a vehicle report or a monitoring of vehicles and pylons or something else. If you don't have the correct thing, that was a location where you needed that study, if I remember correctly.
So through your worship, these fees, part of the reason they're low is they're built under the assumption that the replacement of the electric lift will stay in the budget and we can keep using it. It's when that one can't be used that we need a traffic plan because that one fits on the sidewalk. Anything bigger than that does not. And that's, yes, if we were going that route, that fee would certainly be bigger.
So, Mayor, I agree with what Jessica's report is, so that's my thoughts on process.
And that would be option one or option two, Councillor Shank?
Which one has what you have for fees?
So through your worship, we broke it into each location. Option two is to say that wherever a group wants to pay the fee to have their banner set up, we can do that, obviously with the caveat that we're not doing that in November or July or any other established town events that may come up. Option one says you can have for free at the SPC or at Market Square and Springside Park, one or the other, depending on where your event is primarily hosted, your choice, and the other ones are just not on the table. It was suggested to me today that a third option could have been to say, we'll give you one of those locations free, and if you want any more, you have to pay for them. But there's infinite ways you could vary this template, but that's sort of what it broke down to, was either a small amount for free or whatever an organization is willing to pay.
So I agree with what your option is, that there's the fee imposed. It's very minimal at best, but there's, I don't want to bring up bag tags. There's a service used, you pay for it. There's everything that you're paying as a municipality. So no one area is getting something for free. So, and they're very small fees to begin with for the amount of labor that's done. So I think we're being more than compensating at these rates that is being proposed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Shank. And I think Councillor Pennell's got some comments.
Thank you, Worship. I through you, I believe this question would go to Mr. Dafo. In here under 5.4, we have crosswalk art. And I'm just wondering if that paint for the crosswalk has to be a special paint. And if so, who pays for that? Because we're talking about putting up banisters and banners and stuff like this and payment for that. But I'm just wondering who applies the paint and who pays for that on the crosswalks.
Through your worship, in general terms, we have a contractor come in to do that. And I'm just thinking, as far as like doing something above and beyond the norm, is the question?
Yeah, sorry. During in this policy, there's an opportunity to have crosswalk art done, painted. And I'm just wondering, so you're saying that that's contracted out. I'm just wondering who pays for that. And I think Madam Clerk has the answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Madam Clerk can answer that.
Through your worship, the proclamation associated crosswalk art that's been done here was done by a professional contractor, but it was paid for by the organization that was hosting the events. And that would be the intent unless it was to be a town-sponsored event. I believe the city of Kingston did a pilot program with some town-sponsored art, but that was a specific initiative from the municipality. The policy, I believe, states that any costs are borne directly by the applying organization.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Is there any other comments or questions with respect to this report? And at some point, we'll be looking for some direction for Madam Clerk. If not, sorry, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Carver.
Yes, I'm just trying to be clear here. So option 1 is charging a fee. Is that correct?
Through your worship, option 2 is the one to charge the fees.
And option 1 is no fees.
No fees, but less banners, limiting the number of places they can be for free. We said less than $200 value of labor overall, which is very in line with the types of support we provide for all kinds of events and community groups through various in-kind staff time.
Okay, yeah, because the prices were very reasonable. I was expecting a lot higher than that for sure. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Calvert. Is there anything else? Seeing none, just something I'd like to weigh in, Madam Clerk, and I know we've had conversations with it with respect to our flags and our flag pole locations and stuff. I see that in, and I can direct just the half masting of flags. We've identified flag poles are designated for the purposes of clauses 5.3B, 4 through to 9. Town Hall is designated as one of those areas. The Municipal Administration Building at 99 Advance is designated. I'm wondering if we could tweak this a little bit, and I'd like to hear from council if they disagree with me, that rather than using the Municipal Recreation Complex, which is the SPC Center, could we use the number 1 Fire Hall, which is just 2 doors down from 99 Advance, and lump our Municipal Recreation Center in with our ball fields and our parks. The reason I say that is obviously we've had, unfortunately, an opportunity for half masting this week, and I won't say that it wasn't awkward, but it's just we have our flags at 99 Advance at half mast, but we didn't have the flags at the fire department, which is 2 doors down. I just think that due to its location, it might be a more appropriate location to marry up our number 1 fire hall on Advance Avenue with 99 Advance under the circumstances. And further to that, we really only have 1 flagpole, and I find it kind of difficult to even call it a flagpole at Town Hall here. We've got a piece of galvanized pipe sticking out of the roof, which is now, from what I understand, causing some damage to our fascias and our roof. I'd like to see that flagpole, especially if we're going to leave Town Hall, in one of those designated classes, and we should, but I would like to see that flagpole removed fairly soon so it doesn't cause any more damage. But I'd also like to see, with the work that we're going to be done to Town Hall this spring, maybe some real flagpoles be put up in the downtown complex so that it's more appropriate than what we have here. So those are my comments with respect to that anyways. Is there anything that come from my comments that anyone would like to comment about? Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Just as the chair of the Market Square Advisory Committee, I'd just like to say that, you know, there is going to, as you mentioned, there's work to be done today outside of this building, starting in the spring. And we'll most definitely be looking at and bring a report back to council on provisions for flagpoles in the Market Square.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Is there anything else council would like to comment on? And like I say, we'll be looking for some direction with respect to what our options are here tonight so that staff can bring back a policy, not just a draft policy, probably at our next meeting, I'm thinking, Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, for greatest possible clarity, since we have had a number of conversations on this, if you like, we can bring a final version of this to the next meeting, so we're all definitely sure that we're agreeing to the same thing here.
Great. I think that might be best that
Sorry, with option 2 on the banners.
yeah, I think that's probably best. We've tweaked it enough that maybe we can bring back a somewhat of a finalized draft, and then we can make a decision on it then. So
With your recommendations on the changes as well.
that would be my suggestion. And I know that Madam Clerk is typing feverishly here, so I know that she's taking note of that as well. Yes.
Do you need a motion for that?
We will be looking for a motion to note and receive, I believe, Madam Clerk, but I don't know if you'll need a motion with respect to the direction given, or I'll leave that up to you. Nope, just gotta let her get caught up here, so. It's much easier to talk than it is to type.
So through your worship, I believe the direction from council is to receive this report for information and further direct staff to bring forward a final draft of these policies to the next meeting based on the feedback provided at this meeting, specifically support for proposed option 2 for the proclamations policy and amendments to the to include the fire hall and Advance Avenue as a designated flagpole for purpose of half-masting.
And to remove the recreation center, or do we need to add that?
Yes, sorry, yes, through your worship, I can adjust that wording.
Okay, I think we may have a motion. I couldn't have said it better myself, Madam Clerk. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship, I would just like to say I've had fun with flags tonight at the Town of Greater Napanee Council meeting for all the Big Bang Theory fans out there. Thank you.
I didn't think you could resist, so thank you, Councillor Hicks. Is there anything further? Seeing none, we do have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up is growth and expansion, parkland dedication, draft bylaw for discussion. I see Mr. Nobes coming up. Welcome, Michael, again. And once you get seated and settled, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. What staff have in front of council this evening is a draft bylaw and an explanatory report around parkland dedication. And this is outside of the development charges framework. So this would be used in approvals for new development, which would constitute both subdivisions, new plans of subdivision, new lot creation, so meaning severances, and approval of developments under the site plan control framework that the town has in effect. The town's past practice has been to collect the minimum amount of parkland under the Planning Act through the draft plan approval process. What we have not been doing routinely is extending that into collecting for consent approvals, so meaning new lot creation under severances, as well as through the site plan approval process. So what we've got is a draft that could be enacted subject to council feedback and approval. And what it does is it gives council the ability to it would allow for council to require parkland dedication at what's referred to as the alternate rate in the Planning Act, which is over and above the base minimum. So the base minimum is 2% for commercial and industrial development and 5% for residential development. So that means if you have a 100-acre residential subdivision, council could require 5 acres of that to be land, or 5% of the valuation of that land the day before draft approval is granted as payment in lieu, meaning an appraisal would be needed to determine that 5% valuation. The alternate rate allows for the municipality to require a greater amount of parkland for the same types of developments up to certain caps. Now, those caps were cut in half, unfortunately, through Bill 23, but it's still better than the base minimums for larger size developments. So meaning you could get up to 15% land in those instances, or at a rate of 1 hectare for 600 per 600 units. So what I'm proposing is council give some feedback to staff. Do you want to go down this road? Do we want to exercise this option for collecting higher rates of parkland dedication, whether it's land or cash in lieu? And do we want to start to collect through the consent approval process and the site plan approval process, which again have not been routinely exercised, but this would provide that ability for the municipality to collect under those approval processes. The draft is written such that if for a new lot creation, there'd be flat rates. So for a severance, a new residential lot, for example, flat rates for non-waterfront rural lots, waterfront rural lots, urban area new lots, and agricultural new lot creation. So it would probably work best having flat rates rather than having to get appraisals and opinions of value for each new lot. When it comes to site plan approvals, which aren't as routine as severances, going the appraisal route or the opinion of value would likely be the best approach there to maximize the monies that we could receive. But from a severance perspective, staff believe it'd be advisable to have flat rates just from an administrative perspective. And finally, the bylaw is drafted to give council the leeway to require the full amount under the bylaw or to vary that amount to any degree. So council could, on a case-by-case basis, say, this is a strategic project. We don't want to require or burden the developer with providing parkland. Therefore, you could waive it or amend it to any degree up to that maximum that's authorized under the Planning Act. So hoping to just have some direction from council, have a conversation, and staff can take that back and make some tweaks to the bylaw. And if deemed appropriate, then we could bring this back before council for approval. If council does want to exercise the alternate rate, I will just preface that with, we would need to have specific policies in the official plan before passing a bylaw authorizing that alternate rate. So we could do that as a standalone official plan amendment, or we could build it into the ongoing official plan update process, which we're targeting Q4 finishing. So I'm open for any questions that council may have, Your Worship.
Thanks, Michael. Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Michael, I can understand, when we do a subdivision and such, that we're providing parkland or taking a payment in lieu for that. But I have a concern about doing a 1 hectare or 2 hectare severance in the rural area. of putting a monetary figure, obviously it's going to be a monetary figure on it. So what's our thoughts on that? Why would we want to be putting another fee onto that when there wouldn't be any parkland available for them? Like where would you see this fund going?
Through your worship, so the act would require that we, and we already have this, have a reserve fund specific for monies collected under the parkland dedication under the Planning Act. So monies collected through a rural lot severance would go into that fund and can be used for more or less anything to do with parkland. So whether that's purchasing new land, purchasing equipment for parkland, replacement equipment, there's a lot more flexibility and leeway with what those funds can be used for in comparison to the development charge framework, because those funds could really only be used for expansions of parks, new capacity, increasing capacity of parks. This can get put back towards refurbishing existing parks that may need some TLC. So I would foresee most of that revenue going towards those needs predominantly, or building up a pot of money to purchase a new park in a rural area that would be strategic in that case. So although, you know, you might have a new lot created very far afield from a park, that development, quote unquote development, could still benefit from the existing parks within the area. And this would give us an additional revenue stream that we wouldn't be needing to unduly burden the existing taxpayer for that additional wear and tear as a result of new development. Hopefully that helps.
It does. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Councillor Shank.
Okay. The Kingston, Prince Edward County, Stone Mills, Loyalist, Gananoque, Elizabethtown, Kitley, and Quinny West, they all have the same thing. Some of this fund that would be generated, it can go for boat ramps or anything else like that. It's recreation related, correct?
Correct.
What I want to make sure is that, okay, so the person that subdivides his property or creates that severance and wherever it might be, pays that fee. Now, the people that buy that lot to build the house, when they get their building permit to build their house, are you double dipping through the development bylaw charge that they have to pay also again through their development bylaw charge through the building permit?
Through your worship, it may appear as though it's a double dip, but it's not a double dip. There's segregated funds for different purposes. So the development charge fee collection is solely going to projects identified that are directly related to growth. For example, the Gibbard's Trail, that's future, the Millhouse Yards parkland, the Cherrywood parkland. Those were all projects that were driven by demand as a result of new growth. This fee, we'll call it, it's not under the same framework. So the Planning Act is separate from the Development Charges Act. The Planning Act says you can collect for parkland purposes. DC Act says the same thing, but only for new growth and new capacity increase. This would allow for replacement of a similar size piece of equipment, where if you wanted to take an existing swing set that had 3 swings and make it a 10 set swing set, you could take the difference and use development charges. In this, you could replace that 3-piece swing set under this fee.
Just so I understand you correctly, Mike, is that, so therefore, any of these funds for those severances, that fund is going to be spent in recreational for existing use, not for new, in new subdivisions where they want a bigger, playground equipment or anything else. Those funds that you're generating here are for existing, reused for maintenance or whatever it might be, but it's not for a new developer to subdivide, or, to help them out financially or whatever on any type of that project, correct?
Correct. I mean, the funds could be used for that if council so chooses, but it's unlikely, because you would have the development charge pot of money to use for those growth-related parks purposes. This would be predominantly for renewal of existing parks.
So I don't trust politicians. So I can't believe I said that, but still, the point is if you could, this is just, you know, this is going to go back to you. If you could put that in there, that sole use, what's being generated stays only for existing. So not that you have, let's say you have a different council at the time and says, oh, there's a big pot of money, we're going to spend that also. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that this is what it can be used for and it only can be used for. So, you know, if we need the docks downtown, you know what I mean, fixed up so they can use this because of whatever, and there's a pot of money for that, there's existing use, okay, fine. You know what? Everybody uses that, everybody's paid into that, that's what we're gonna use for that. I just don't want to help out a developer that wants a bigger thing, but I might have some connections on council or whatever. You know what I mean? I just want to make sure it's clip and clear that this is what it's going to be generated for. I have another question if I can, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mike.
All right, is that in the olden days where you used to go ahead and somebody did a subdivision and you had to do, before draft plan approval, it was 5% or a combination of both, cash and possible in land. Are we still in that we can take a combination of both?
Through your worship, yes, it's the draft bylaw is written to give the flexibility to do up to the threshold 100% of either the park land or the cash in lieu or any combination thereof or any amount up to that 100%. It's quite it's written to be quite flexible and give council that ability to vary the provisions of the bylaw as written.
Yeah, great, thanks. Thanks, Mike. Is there any other questions or comments before we give Michael some direction here? Seeing none, obviously, it sounds like this is an investment into our parkland, into our youth. That may provide an opportunity, and I know exactly where Councillor Schenk is coming from, that sometimes we will adjust things in order to make something else happen. But me personally, I'm a big proponent of if we're going to put 5% of parkland in these new neighborhoods, then that's what we should be doing, because it's an investment that will pay its dividends off much later in life, right? Because we do have to provide green space for our youth to play in that. So that being said, do we have any suggestions on a resolution, or let's give Michael some direction as far as where we want to go with this?
So Mike, you've heard my comments, you know what I mean? It's just to rewrite the way it's written or whatever, that it's secured, that what's limitation, you know, what it's definitely for. And what do you want to just table this motion until the next council meeting, or till he has time to bring that back, or?
Well, I think we want to give Michael some direction as to what he can bring back. I don't know if we're looking to pass this evening, but we should give direction as to where Michael will go with it, so he can bring it back maybe at the next meeting.
Yeah, through your worship, looking for, is there an appetite to do this? One, and if so, what sort of modifications would you want to see in this draft?
Yep, go ahead, Councillor Schenk.
So all I'm saying is every other municipality has done this. And the way the economy and way that everything else is, I know it's still another fee on top of all the other fees that people get charged, but you have playground equipment that years ago might have cost $5,000, now it costs $25,000. You know what I mean? And we have to generate other sources of revenue to offset these costs. All right. And I hate to put everything always on the tax dollar with somebody, you know what I mean? So if somebody's doing something, they were going to be paying that extra $1,000 or $1,500 or $800. All right. And that will be going for recreation for existing structures that are in the community. All right. So when they come, we don't have to tax everybody else for the additional use that's going to be there, because they're moving into the area also. I know they're paying it in their taxes and everything else, but it's going to help that out, especially with what the cost in recreation is today. So I agree with it, but if you can make that little codicil in there that any of these funds stay for the existing use, All right, the future councils can't just take that money and say, oh, we're gonna take it and put it over here. That it has to go for the existing structures for these. In a new development, they can, you know, they already get the money for that.
Through your worship, if I could ask a clarifying question, I think I see the intent. These funds could also be used for purchasing park land that the town doesn't yet own as well, right? So this could be a broader benefit to the existing users and new future users as well.
Unrelated to new development.
Unrelated to new development, correct?
So I've been at this game for a while. I've never seen a municipality buy parkland yet, or maybe I'm wrong. All right, but that's a capital. You know, I mean, it's not a capital, but it's more. That is more of an investment that everybody's going to pay for. I feel that these should be for the maintenance, the upgrade. You know, we need this done at the boat ramp. We need this done. You know, we needed a slide that was broken or whatever that's already existing. You know what I mean? That's where I feel that this money's for, but it shouldn't be for the purchase of land. You know what I mean? For a park that, you know, when a developer does it, you're going to get that parkland anyway. So that's just my thoughts.
Councillor Hicks.
Through your worship, I understand where Councillor Schenk is coming from, but if you have, I'll use the term organic development rather than a planned, okay, we're going to put 200 houses here. Over the course of 25 years, there's been houses built. County Road 9 is a perfect example of this. The only park is on Sherman's Point. So as more houses are built, and that might be an instance where you would want to buy a lot somewhere in the middle and put a park. People can bike, walk, drive, whatever. I think that's where you would get into the purchase parkland, correct? Am I in the right direction here?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, obviously, of course, for any purchase of any land is going to come back to council for a decision on what type of land we're purchasing, whether it's a lot to increase parkland at County Road 9 or in addition to a boat ramp on Huff's Lane or whatever the case may be. I mean, obviously, it'll all come back to council for that decision anyways, right?
That is correct. And by no means am I insinuating that there's a potential purchase. This is just an example of potential uses of the money and being refurbishment, purchasing new equipment, new machinery to upkeep existing parks, new parks. And that it's more flexible than leaning solely on development charges for growth-related components of parkland. It's really another potential source of revenue to deal with existing parkland, ultimately. And I will note too, the act does require on a yearly basis, similar to the development charge framework, 60% of the monies in that reserve fund must be allocated or spent in that year. So we would have to earmark portions of that reserve fund out for projects on a yearly basis.
Yeah, go to Councillor Hicks, then I'll go to Councillor Schenk.
So through your worship, the first thing that comes to mind, just to put this into context, South Fredericksburg Hall has a playground, which is considered parkland. When you say parkland, that's what I think of. It could be a small walking trail, whatever. Could be a bench and a tree. The playground equipment needs to be replaced. It's written off, it's dangerous, it needs to be removed before someone's hurt. This fund would be used to replace that.
That is correct.
Just
as a like for like change.
As a like for like change. I'm clear. I'm good. Thank you.
Councillor Schenk, did you have another question there?
Yeah. Mike, when you bring back this report, is there any way you could tell us, it's very probably, hopefully you could do it very easily, but how much would that have generated last year? How many new severances we had, you know what I mean, in town and in the rural area, in the municipality, you know, ballpark?
Last year, I want to say we had around 20 new lots, so 20 to 25, I'd say. Yeah.
It would generate $20,000 to $25,000 last year. And to replace Southfred thing is around 23? Yeah, 23 or 24.
So I guess in theory, it will relieve some of the pressures with respect to our reserves from our facilities. The downside to it, is it onerous enough that it will deter new growth? And I think that's the question that we have to weigh. Will it deter new growth? By the looks of the other municipalities, it doesn't look like it's that onerous, but I guess that's maybe the question that we have to weigh out maybe.
Yeah, certainly, and that's council's decision ultimately. I would say my inclination would be that it wouldn't impact new development. It's a pretty nominal small fee in the grand scheme of things at the end of the day. Putting in a new well on a rural lot and getting a survey is going to far eclipse this $1,000, for example. Just to put it in perspective. Now, other municipalities, so Stone Mills and Loyalist, they do a 5% land value. So I mean that can escalate quite quickly, where these flat rates that we're looking at are, most likely far less than those amounts. So I think the values that we have are a good middle of the road, slightly lower than our neighbors, just to kind of feel it out, see what sort of feedback we get. And council can continue to monitor it on a routine basis.
Yep. Okay. Thanks. Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
The only reason why I'm saying that I feel what Mike's done here is fair. Not that I like to have any more taxes, but if you take 5% on a waterfront lot and the lot sells for $100,000, it's $5,000. He's offering, and Mike's saying, here, it's $1,000. You know what I mean? So I'd much rather have a flat fee that I know what I'm going to be paying for than somebody going ahead and saying, okay, you're going to be selling that property. You sold that property for $100,000, and here's yeah.
And I agree. I think the flat rate is the way to go. It's probably a whole lot easier to manage, and it will be a lot friendlier to our developers or to the people that are building houses, right? So, yeah. Okay.
No, everything's all been answered. Like I was just going to reiterate that it's a known fee. You know what you're going into it. That's not like a 5% surprise, like Councillor Shank was saying. So all good.
Okay. Is there anything else? If not, we'll look for direction for Michael to, and I think we'll just bring this back with a cleaned up draft. Is that fair?
Through your worship, I think what I'm hearing is a preference to direct that the monies in the reserve be used for refurbishment and renewal of existing park land as a preference for the use of those funds, which I think we can figure out how that would function best administratively within the bylaw. We'll have to put our heads together on how to do that, but I think we can get there.
Okay. So we'll look for a motion to note and receive the information parkland dedication draft bylaw for discussion report and the direction that we've provided. Are you good with that, or do you need it in the way of by motion?
So through your worship, I think based on what I'm hearing around the table, I think you may want to say something to the effect of the council directs staff to proceed with further work on a parkland dedication bylaw with funds to be used for refurbishment of existing parkland. I don't know if you need it to say with support for flat fees or if over percentage.
I think this discussion is satisfactory to leave those in.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do you have what you need as far as a motion?
Through your worship, I believe so, although I see a
Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor
That's
Calver.
exactly the way I was going to word that motion.
I think Deputy Mayor Calver is going to make that by way of motion. And I think you have what you need. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Pennell. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I just ask, Michael, the Planning Act requires municipalities spend 60% of that fund every single year. So wouldn't that deplete the fund after a number of years?
Through your worship, no. So it's at the start of the fiscal year, you have an amount, let's say $100,000. You would have to either spend or earmark that for future projects, 60% of that for future projects. The next year, so throughout that year, at the start of that year, you've budgeted 60% out. Throughout that year, you're taking in an additional amount. Let's just say it's $50,000 that you collect in that same fiscal year. The next year you allocate out from that $50,000 that you took in. So it's not fully depleting. It's taking in that, or it's allocating out from what you just brought in the previous year.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we do have a motion on the floor. We'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Bylaws. I don't believe we have any bylaws this evening, Madam Clerk. Information reports from members. Do any members of council have any information reports they'd like to share with us? Seeing none. Inquiries. Do any members of council have any inquiries that we can task staff with to come back at our next meeting? Seeing none. Do any members of council have any notices of motion? Seeing none. Is there any new business? Seeing none. Announcements. Do any members of council have any announcements they'd like to make this evening? Seeing none. The forward calendar. Is there any conversation that anybody wants to ask with respect to the forward calendar or the council resolution tracker that we have that they want something clarified or asked about? Seeing none, look for a motion for the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of this evening's meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. Ready first, second, and finally passed this evening. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Hicks, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, folks. It's an early evening tonight, and we'll see you, I think, next week for budgets again, if I'm not mistaken. Good night.